Hello, this is Mark Roberts, and you are listening to the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Today, I'm joined by the still alive Kyle McEwen, and we're going to be discussing rookie projections. Kyle, welcome back.
Thanks, man. I'm feeling a little bit better, and they told me I'm not gonna die when I went to the hospital last night. So,
That's all
hey,
Kyle needed to know. He ripped out his IVs and said, "I'm going to go record a podcast." Then,
pretty much.
Kyle, I want to get back to the how you're feeling in just a second, but first, I want to start off with just a thank you to our listeners who have been awesome so far. I know you and I both are excited about how high we've been in the iTunes charts in the sports section. Some days we're above 50, in the top 50, some days we're in the top 100. Usually in Australia, we're in the top 10, which is awesome. And we've not only that, just the downloads and the listens, but also just the contributors. People have been donating money to us, which is something I am really surprised at and really grateful for. And also people have been contributing their time. We've had people designing logos. The logo if you're watching this podcast, you can see the logo on our site right now was basically donated to us. We've had people donate their time behind the scenes to do search engine optimization. Somebody shared a fantasy tool that they built today that they want to put on our website based on our projections. So I just think it's been really cool how people have tried to get involved and participate in the website. And that's something I think we both wanted when we started this project.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just a lot of engagement is something we talked about all the time. So it's been awesome. And when you're working from home alone a lot, just your dog sitting here kind of licking your knee. It's awesome to get pats on the back and to also just be able to converse and talk to people about the things that you love. So anyways, blah, blah, blah. Our new theme music was The Promise Rings. Happiness is All the Rage. You can get their music at jtree.com.
Excellent. So, and for those of you that like to listen and haven't had a chance to go on and rate and review the podcast, we know it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to go actually do it, but it really does help us out, particularly as we're looking to hopefully get the podcast sponsored eventually. So if you can rate and review it, just takes a couple of minutes, say some nice things about Kyle's hairdo, and throw us 4 or 5 stars if you can.
Tight money. Let's talk some basketball.
Yeah, Kyle. Well, before we get there, Kyle, do you want to tell us anything? You want to give everybody a quick update on how you're feeling, or you just want to?
My stomach hates me, and I thought I was going to die. And I didn't know if it was because I got hit in the stomach while playing pickup basketball from my buddy, who's a jerk and he likes to throw elbows, or if it was because I ate some bad meat for the second time in a week because I'm dangerous like that. So anyways,
both.
Yeah,
the bad meat got in your gut, and then you got the bad meat itself got elbowed and exploded.
I went to the emergency room last night. They gave me about a gallon full of this orange drink to make my body glow inside. They took some images with the CT scan. I used their bathroom way too many times. And then I came home because I was feeling great for whatever reason. Everything had gone away while I was at the emergency room. I didn't have any of this debilitating pain. And I get home and I get something to eat, and my body just starts hurting. Why are we talking about this on the podcast? Anyways, I'm still in pain.
Let people know how you're feeling.
And I'm figuring out what's wrong with my body. But I got saltines here. I got some water. I'm going to be tight money. I took some painkillers, so this might get real fun. So let's have a good time, all right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we have some plans for what we want to do with the website and with the podcast. And to the degree that we've said what we want to do and we haven't done it yet, it's been hindered a little bit because of that. And hopefully everyone's been very patient so far and very supportive. And so just thank you for that as well. What we want to talk about today, Kyle, is our rookie projections. I think those are particularly interesting because we've talked about, earlier in the first few podcasts, how we do the projections and rankings, and they're all based on historical data. Like if we're talking about LeBron's projections, we have 11 years of data and so many thousand games that we can rely on of what LeBron has done, what he typically does, that we can use to build the projections. And with the NBA, with the rookie projections, we have no NBA data for them. So we thought it would be interesting, particularly as you know, you and I have, we mostly agree on almost everything, but on rookies, sometimes we disagree. And I thought maybe it would be useful if we could kind of talk about how we go about projecting rookies, and then more importantly, discuss some of the top rookies and what we expect out of them this year.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Can I start with an email though first?
Hell yeah.
This is from Marty McFly, which was pretty exciting. One of the reasons I wanted to read it. Tells us we're doing a great job on our podcast. And then he said, one thing that Josh and I went through, and I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that in your agony or not, but we talked about how to build a team in the draft. And he said, we mentioned keeping an eye on opponents' team average performance in each category while drafting, so that you can sort of pick the right types of players. And we basically discussed the overall theme of the discussion was basically how to make sure your team is balanced in each of the categories. And so, Kyle, I thought it might be interesting for listeners. They kind of heard how Josh did it. I thought it'd be interesting if we could also go get your take on, as you're going along and not just picking necessarily the best player available, but trying to win each category that you're focusing on. How do you make sure you're not like deficient in one of the categories you're planning on winning?
I guess I cheat a little bit, or I just kind of wing it in some regard, but I do use a thought process throughout the draft. So if I draft James Harden in the first round, I know he's going to be great in points. He's going to be good. He's going to be decent in rebounds for his position. He's going to be good in assists for his position. He's going to give you great three-pointers. He's going to give you steals. He's not going to give you great blocks. So then I'm saying, in head-to-head leagues, what do I need that James Harden doesn't give me? So I'm going to go and I'm going to get potentially field goal percentage. I know I'm going to get rebounds. I'm going to get blocks. So I know sometimes Josh talks about how he doesn't like the idea of taking a guy like James Harden in the first round and then pairing him with DeAndre Jordan, because you eliminate one of James Harden's strengths in his free throw percentage.
No, but I think even if Josh would say if you don't care about free throw percentage, then it doesn't matter.
Right. And so this is definitely from, and this is just my head-to-head perspective. My perspective or my thought process in rotisserie leagues is completely different. I'm taking into account the full landscape of a player's statistics, from his field goal percentage down through his turnovers if it's a 9-cat league. But in a head-to-head, I just want guys who are elite at stuff, who are great at particular categories, to help make sure that I'm insulated in each category. So as I go through the draft, I'm more accounting for what I think of the players that I have. And I look through my roster and I say, okay, elite there, elite there, elite there. Do I have enough of that stat? Do I have enough of this stat? I don't really rely on the projections, right? Because anytime you're looking through the rankings or the projected rankings on Yahoo, whoever drafted the higher player is probably going to be projected higher, because that player probably has better statistics, which is why he's higher in the rankings. And that's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy for when, you go and use any site's kind of like draft software that they have. If you pick players that are high in their rankings, which is what it's going to tell you to do, you're going to look better than people who aren't using those rankings. And so that's a little bit of a dangerous thing to understand, that you need to have your own understanding of what you expect players to do this season, rather than just relying on what the projections are from really anybody.
Well, not to mention that there's injuries and trades and a whole host of things that can make your preseason projected standings not valid.
I guess one last thought about the whole building a team throughout it. Yeah. I'm usually there's just certain categories where it's you need to get these categories in the draft. You need to get big scoring in the draft. Right. You need to get big assists in the draft. But when it comes to at the end of the draft, if I need to pick a player who's going to help me in blocks, or pick a guy who's got higher upside, I might just pick the higher upside guy, because I usually feel like you can find a guy who gets a block and a half on the waiver wire pretty much most of the season. And I feel like you can get three-pointers on the waiver wire most of the season. And so sometimes I don't target those. I definitely don't target three-pointers a lot in my drafts, to be honest. I just kind of figure that out throughout the year.
You're more of take the approach of lick your finger and put it up and test the win than do any sort of like Josh kind of described more of an analytical approach of just, charting it out either in written form or in a spreadsheet.
And then I think I think there's something analytical to the process in that, like, I am keenly aware of what all the statistics are for each player. So,
Right.
and what I expect them to average. So, like, when I'm looking at, like I've been arguing for more minutes for Porzingis, and I've been arguing for more minutes for Stanley Johnson and stuff like that. And like, I totally get why we're not giving them more minutes, but I'm personally, when I'm rostering a guy like Stanley Johnson, I'm taking into account what I think he's going to average, not what the rankings tell me he's going to average. So
that's a good point. No, I do I think that makes a lot of sense. For me, I think having some sort of benchmark that you're shooting for with the projections while not being totally tied to them is the way I like to approach it, just so that I'm not surprised at the end of the draft when I'm like, oh shoot, I don't have any blocks or I don't have any rebounds. So I think if there's a way that you can, if you've played in your league for a long time and you can sort of look at the league history and say, how many points on average do I need to sort of accumulate to be able to win this league? How many rebounds do I need? And try to hit those rebounds. But I think the thing that you'd really need to be careful of if you go with that sort of strategy, or the one that Josh described, is don't make yourself so inflexible that you miss some good opportunities. Like, we look at in the real draft, and NBA teams do that sometimes, where they get so focused, say on Frank Kaminsky, that they miss an opportunity to make a good trade or pick a different player that falls to them. So I definitely can appreciate, and a lot of times kind of follow the approach that you're talking about, Kyle.
I love that example of Frank Kaminsky getting drafted this year and them not like taking Justice Winslow or somebody else.
That seems like what happened. They went in, they said, Frank Kaminsky is going to be there in where we're drafting. We think he's going to fit our system. Like he's, as we're building our team, that's what we want. And then like these two other great options happened where Justice Winslow fell to them where they didn't expect. And then they had this like reportedly a Godfather trade offer for that position so that the Celtics could pick Winslow. So even if they didn't like Winslow, they could have got the value in the trade for him. And they basically, maybe I'm being too hard on them, but it seems like maybe one of the reasons they didn't pull the trigger is because they weren't flexible in their strategy and they didn't maximize their value in that. And even, I'm not saying Frank Kaminsky won't be good, but all I'm saying is maybe they missed an opportunity because they were so rigid in what they were trying to do. And that's what we don't want fantasy players to do.
Holla, holla, holla.
All right, let's get into the rookie projections. And I think this will be good. Hopefully this will be interesting to the listeners. And I think it will also be good, Kyle, for us. I always think of the rookie projections fondly. This is the first project that you and I ever worked on. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah. The first articles that we ever worked on together were a bunch of like, here's what I project the new rookies are going to do. And it was right after the draft. They were freaking awesome. But anyways.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I don't know if we've ever really done a deep dive together into the way that you've always just kind of been very trusting of my process. But I think it would be good to kind of pull back the curtain here a little bit and look at the
I'll just grab onto the back of your tail fin and you can dive down, little dolphin.
It sounds good, man. And hopefully this will be a little bit like a working, we can look at things and maybe adjust things as we go here. So basically what I want to do is just quickly show everybody the process that we use. I know some people don't care as much and some people are listening, so we'll try to make that viable for the listeners too. But mostly we'll talk about specific players and what they project like, to just give everybody like a comfort level of where these stats come from. Let's start. Here is my Google Doc that all this magic happens in.
Ooh, look at all those sheets at the bottom.
Yeah.
Lots of different stuff.
I think here's where I want to start. Okay. So the way that it starts is I take, for a rookie, I'll try to grab a lot of player comps, and just to make sure I'm giving the proper credit out. Here you can see Karl Towns. Here's the player. Here's all the player comps in college that I'm looking at. And the place those come from, has to refresh. I hope I'm saying this name right. Lane Fashro. He works at he used to work at Hickory High, or I don't know where he actually works. He contributes at Hickory High. He used to do some, or I think he might still work at the hardwood peroxism, the nylon calculus site, or some entity there. If I'm not given the proper citing my sources, that not intentional. But Lane's work is awesome with the NCAA stats. But what he does is he has a tool here. You can put in a player's name. It will give you a bunch of similar players, and you can adjust so that you rely more heavily on one category or another. So what I like to do is I go through these and I look for the fantasy stats. So players that are really similar based on the traditional fantasy stats that we use. So you can see he has a lot of like interesting, more advanced stats, and I tend to focus more on the basic fantasy stats because that's kind of what we care about. Anyway, I get a bunch of player comps, and you can come back here and see where Karl Towns' are. And I try to actually kind of match them up on draft level so that we're not comparing players that went first in the draft to players that went undrafted, even though they had similar college stats, to hopefully kind of take into account that they're at the same talent level. So for Karl Towns, I mean, he has like an all-star player comp. He's got Tim Duncan, Greg Oden, who we know who's excellent in college, Tyrus Thompson's not great, Kevin Love, Joe Smith, Andrew Bogut, Elton Brand, Chris Bosh, Michael Beasley, and Shaquille O'Neal are his top ones. It is really outstanding.
Well, Kenyon Martin, DeMarcus Cousins, and Emeka Okafor aren't too bad either.
Yeah, I mean, you just keep going down. Al Horford, Blake Griffin, Derek Favors, Joakim Noah, Rafe LaFrentz even. And Kyle, if you have any questions when we're going through this, let me know.
No, it's really interesting. Just keep going, baby.
Yeah, and then so for those players, I take from Draft Express. So we're really just kind of accumulating numbers from all across the web here. I'll look at all the players' stats on a pace adjusted per minute basis, so that we're not taking into account pace, which is really problematic in college stats. Some teams play fast, some play slow. You've got the 35-minute shot clock that really can
35-minute shot clock.
Sorry, 35 seconds. It feels like 35 minutes.
I hate it.
Yeah, I can't hardly watch college basketball.
I also hate zone defense. So put a damn 3-second rule in, and you'll see. You know what would happen is it would unlevel the playing field, because if you don't have somebody just dominating the paint down there, some of the superstar players would just, like John Wall would have scored like 80 points a game.
Yeah, and then I would want to watch. So
agreed.
It would be fun. I guess if you want to take the fun out of it, you're right. That would be a good way to do it. Anyway, so these are minute adjusted, pace adjusted. These are just so they're all on the same basis. We're looking at the same stats, college stats for all these players. I scroll back over. And then what I did is I pulled in their rookie stats from Basketball Reference. So same thing, pace adjusted, minutes adjusted. So you can see Tim Duncan, let's just focus on one category to make it simple. In college, he averaged 3.6 blocks per, I think, 40 minutes pace adjusted. And in the NBA, his rookie season, he averaged 3.5 blocks per 100 possessions. So basically what I do is I take both sets of stats, and there's some math here that I don't think we need to get into, but basically look at where Karl Anthony Towns kind of ranked in college with these players, and then slot them in the same place if we look at how those players did in the pros, their rookie season. So you kind of do that. Karl Anthony Towns comes out at 2.7 blocks per 100 possessions. So, below Duncan, but ahead of somebody like, let's see, who was this? Kevin Love. Ahead of somebody like Andrew Bogut even. Does that kind of make sense? Did I explain that in a way that is coherent?
I mean, as far as it's like, I love the correlation and everything. The fact that you're taking into account the college stats that the players had, and like you're looking at Karl Anthony Towns' college stats as compared to Tim Duncan's college stats, and then you're using what Tim Duncan did in the NBA to help try to foresee what Karl Anthony Towns might do in his first year. Like, I mean, I think it's beautiful. I don't know. I'm glad you skipped all the math talk, though.
Yeah, the math is a little complicated, but basically all it's doing is saying, okay, in this player set, say we have how many players here, 20 or so. Of these players, if Karl Anthony Towns ranked 10th, or let's say you're ranked second in blocks, then we would look at all those NBA players and basically rank him second in how they did in blocks in the pros. And so if he ranked last in rebounds, say, we would put him low, look at all their how those players rebounded in the pros, we would stick him kind of last. Like, that's not exactly how it goes, but that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish. So I do that not only for his player comps, but I kind of do that taking all of the NCAA stats and all the NBA stats that I have, just so that it's not skewed by a weird player comp sample size. And at the end of the day, what we get is, these are working files. They're not exactly meant to be shared on the screen, but hopefully we're following along okay. You see Karl Anthony Towns, there's a couple of different ways to project him out. And at the end of the day, we combine two different of these methods, and we come up with some stats for him based on how he did in college and how similar players did in college. So you can see these are all per 100 possessions, but he comes out with 19 points per 100 possessions, 14 rebounds, 2.7 blocks. And then we have that same base that we have, for the what am I thinking of? Oh, for the non-rookie players. And then we can, fit them into the rotation. We can look at how fast of a pace their team plays at, and we can arrive at some final projected numbers for them. So that's how, for everybody who plays in the NCAA, that's how our rookie projections are done. And you can see all of the players here. Did that same process for every single one of these guys and came up with some projected stats. So it's certainly true that, you say, hey, can Karl Anthony Towns score more points than we're projecting him for? And I guess I would take you back to this list and say, we've got him projected for 19. Tim Duncan scored 30 in his rookie season. And these are, again, per 100 possessions. Shaq scored 30. Marcus Cousins scored 25. But there's also the cases where they didn't work out and the player scored 16 or 15 or 12 or something. And so it sort of slots him in where he would fit based on his college production.
Right. But shouldn't we take, and I think the one thing I'm going to keep arguing, or I will argue about, is that Karl Anthony Towns is much different than an Andrew Bogut or a Kenyon Martin, just because his skill level and the numerous ways in which he can score. The dude, I would
feel that way if you watched Kenyon Martin in now that we have hindsight, we can see what Kenyon Martin's career turned into. But I'm curious if you would have, and there's no way to know this, but if you would have felt the exact same way as Kenyon Martin got drafted first overall and was, supposed to be a scorer in the pros. Do you understand, even if that is not the perfect example, do you understand where I'm coming from there? It's easy to feel like Karl Anthony Towns is going to be a star because he was drafted early, but there's a lot of guys on this list that were drafted early that did not turn out great.
No, I know. I guess I'm getting more bullish on it after watching him watching his highlights and stuff like that over the last couple games, because he comes out and I think his first bucket was he went across the lane and hit a left-handed hook shot, and then he starts just draining these long twos and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. There's no way he's not going to score more.
Can I give you the argument that I think is probably true of why we should bump him up in the projections as far as points goes?
Yep.
I don't think any of these guys played on a team that was with as many talented scorers as Kentucky. I think Towns probably had to share the ball more in college than, say, I don't know, pick a guy, DeMarcus Cousins or even Emeka Okafor or Shaq. Shaq didn't have 6 lottery picks on his team that he had to try to help make sure they scored enough points too. So
right.
That's probably the case. If you want to make a case that he needs to score more in our projections, that's probably, I think, the case. I am really nervous about taking context into account because I don't watch college, and it's not really fair to take Karl Anthony Towns's team makeup and individual situation into account, but not Tim Duncans and Greg Odens and all the other players. And there's just no way to do that. But I do think that Kentucky team was a pretty big anomaly.
And I think I'm less focused on what Towns averaged or what he paced out as in college, as I am by saying looking at that Minnesota team and saying, if he's the starting center there, Kevin Garnett doesn't really do much on offense. If he's starting at power forward, there's just not a lot of offensive weapons there.
Right.
And so somebody's going to have to score. And when you're looking for a bucket, like Sam Mitchell was just saying the other day how he wants Andrew Wiggins to start scoring more without them running a play for him. Like, just find a way to score. Karl Anthony Towns does that.
Sounds like lazy coaching to me.
I think it was his way of saying, like, be more aggressive, put the ball on the floor, that kind of stuff.
It's just funny. Like, I wish Andrew Wiggins would just score more, so I don't have to figure out how to help him score. I
think it's more about it. I mean, you're right, but I do think it's just more about him being, like, way too much of a team player.
Yeah. And the cool thing, Kyle, that we added this year that we didn't have last year in these projections, I'll just wrap it up and then we can kind of talk into some players here. I was actually able to take some international stats and translate them to NBA stats. It's not as robust of a method as, being able to grab 20 player comps for each player, but we're able to take a lot of, Hazonia, Porzingis, and Walter Tavares from Atlanta, all played in the same league that Paul Gasol, Marc Gasol, Jose Calderon, Serge Ibaka, Ilyasova, Mirotic, Rubio, and some other players played in. So we were able to look at the stats they had in those leagues and the stats those players had in the NBA and do some translation for the Porzingis, Hazonia, and Walter Tavares, and some other rookies as well. So that was a kind of something that we built in this season that we didn't have last season that I'm pretty excited about, actually.
Yeah, it's super dope.
Okay, do you want to talk about some specific players here and maybe who we're projecting that you should take in rookie drafts? And you can, as we've done with Towns, you can kind of share your opinion here. Let's look at some, rather than per 100 possessions numbers and stuff we know that people don't actually care that much about. Let's look at what we think they're actually going to do. So we've got Karl Anthony Towns projected for 31 minutes a game. That puts him in the 12 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1.7 blocks, and almost a steal per game territory with a little bit of 3-point shooting, not enough to have a lot of value, but enough that he'll take one once in a while, and a 1.6 assists per game. We've got him ranked 80th overall. And you, it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you're actually a little more bullish on him than that. You think his numbers could maybe surpass those.
Yeah, mostly it's just the scoring. It's even in 31 minutes a game, watching Karl Anthony Towns play over, in limited fashion in preseason, and it's also just looking back over his college work. The guy can score several different ways. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up dropping 2 dimes a game. He had some nice passes at the summer league. He's just looked so impressive thus far that I don't see how with the effortlessness with which he hits a lot of these deep 2-point shots that he takes while he's got dudes' hands in his face, and he steps into shots coming up the court. If he's comfortable shooting pretty much anywhere on the court.
I guess the thing that's probably true is we would both have him as the clear-cut top rookie in probably any sort of format. I would think almost any. Do you agree? And he's definitely a guy that you want to draft and put into your starting lineup.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a potential 80% shooter from the free throw line, close to that. He's going to be a good free throw shooter for a big man. And he's potentially going to have a great field goal percentage, even if he's stretching out and he starts hitting 3-pointers or something.
My numbers suggest he'll probably be in the 47% range, which isn't great, but it's okay.
It's not great for head to head. You're like okay for the most part. If you're punting percentages, you don't love it. I think that's the one thing that's, well, I don't know. Honestly, to me, the decision is take Karl Anthony Towns or take Tim Duncan. Take a little bit of upside, but a little bit of, you don't know exactly what you're going to get, or take the consistent guy, because they're going about I feel like they're getting taken about the same spot in most of my drafts.
So, I mean, if we're talking about like rookie tiers here, he's definitely in the top tier, and I think probably in a tier by himself. Do you agree? Like,
Yeah, because he contributes in several categories.
yeah.
Free throw percentages pretty much is great. His points, his blocks, his rebounds.
And he's the
You've
only
got
rookie that we have in our as a clear cut, like basically he should start for your team. He's not a bench guy. He's not a guy that you take a flyer on. Like he's going to contribute. If you want a rookie on your team, this is the guy you want. You want to talk about should we talk about we have kind of three guys in our next tier.
Oh, sugar plums.
D'Angelo Russell and Porzingis. Sorry, what?
I need to go find Moutier too.
Oh, we didn't bring him over. Good
So
catch, Kyle.
he was number 75 on the total season ranks.
Oh, so he's another guy that we have.
Yep.
Probably is a tier 1 guy.
And I want to reiterate, like, it's so much is important. It's just like we always say, minutes is the most important stat in fantasy basketball. Well, it's the opportunity here for guys like Karl Anthony Towns, Moutier, Jahlil Okafor. They're going to get minutes this year. That's why they're here. I mean, it's as simple as looking at that minutes per game column and just right there, they're all getting over 30 minutes a game.
So he would also be in the tier 1. What I will say about Moutier, and I've said it before, is I can show you if anybody wants to see what I have a specific tab in here for. Oh shoot, I closed it. I have a specific tab in there for Moutier. Where'd I go? I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it back. And it's basically just a bunch of rookie point guards that are similar size and similar age, and what they did in. Oh, there it is. Let me see if I can figure out where it is. My technical skills are not great here. Okay, here it is.
I love it when your family pictures pop up when you're like switching between stuff.
All right, so for Moutier, all I can really do is say here are similar players.
And this is because Moutier played overseas last year, and he only played like a few games.
Yeah, he got hurt. So here, this is a bad way to do a projection. This is not like this isn't a second or third option. This is like a very last option to do a projection. But just took players that were also kind of 19 or 20 that played point guard that were between 6'4" and 6'6", and just said, hey, what did they do in their rookie season? You can see there's Drew Holiday, Zach LaVine, Tony Roten Jr., Dante Exum, Sean Livingston, Marcus Smart, Peyton, Alfred Payton, Tyreek Evans. There's a host of other guys, John Wall's on that list. And I just took an average. Like I just said, hey, on average, what do these guys do? And that's what he came up with his projection for. So if you don't trust him, if you don't want to use him, let me see if I can get back to our rankings. I don't blame you at all.
I think Emmanuel Moutier might be undraftable in a rotisserie league 9 category with turnovers, because he's going to average a crap ton of turnovers. I think he averaged like 7.5 turnovers in his first 2 preseason games. And then he had like 2 turnovers in the third game. So he's working on it. His jump shot's going to be questionable. Really, Moutier works for a punt strategy where you're punting turnovers and you're punting the shooting percentages, because it puts all the value on whatever counting stats he gets. And that's the one thing he's going to contribute in. In fact, I would be surprised if Moutier doesn't get more than 4.9 assists a game, because he should be out there playing 33 minutes a game. And if he's as good of a passer as they say, and he can do it consistently, then he's going to be getting like, closer to 7 or 8 potentially.
Yeah, I guess all I'm saying
that's a lot for a rookie though.
Yeah, all I'm saying is these projections have nothing to do with Moutier. They're just looking at people like him that have been in the NBA before. So it certainly is not taking any of his individual characteristics into account, which is definitely not a good way to do it. And hopefully everybody knows that. And if you like him, draft him higher than where we've got him. And if you don't like him, don't feel like you're stupid if you don't draft him. I have no idea what he's going to turn into.
I mean, I've taken him in a league or two because, like I said, the opportunity is there. Yeah. But sometimes it's a choice between you're getting down there and it's like, okay, Rubio just went, I was planning on taking him. Alfred Payton just went, I was planning on taking him. MCW had just went, I was planning on taking him. all right, I'm going to take Moutier because he's one of the final guys that's going to be available who's going to get you potentially big assist numbers.
Yep.
So,
all right, do you want to talk about? Let's talk about the next three guys on the list that we have as kind of firmly right on the cusp of almost being a starter, but probably not quite, but should definitely be drafted. It's D'Angelo Russell, at least by the projections. And again, these are my projections, so Kyle may very well have a different opinion, and I think that's what we want to hear. So I've got D'Angelo Russell, Kristaps Porzingis, and Jaleel Okafor.
Yeah, Okafor is going to get tons of minutes there. They're actually trying to limit his minutes in the preseason a little bit so that he's got the regular season real games to play in, that they don't exhaust him before they get there, or so that they don't put any extra wear and tear on him now. Okafor's came out in his first game. He shot 4 for 4 from the field to start, and he hit some really difficult shots. He hit some mid-range shots. And that's interesting. If Okafor can hit the mid-range J consistently, he's going to have potential to be pretty darn good. It's the only thing that gives me any pause about Okafor is the fact that Brett Brown has come out and said that the Sixers are kind of bucking the trend in the NBA by starting two guys who kind of need to be close to the bucket to score most of the time, in Nerlens Noel and Okafor. And in some ways, it sounded like Brett Brown might be considering a rotation that doesn't start each of them every night. I don't think that's actually going to happen, but some of the wording that I read sounded a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, my quick take on Okafor is he'll probably lead the rookies in points. He may have a very good rebounding percentage. I think it's probably between him and Towns who gets the most rebounds. He actually is like historically high as far as a field goal percentage projection. Most rookies are not even sniffing 50%, just because it's not something that rookies do is shoot well. They kind of learn that as they go. He projects to have a 55% field goal percentage, which holds up. It's based on a statistically rigorous model. Like I think that's probably what will happen. He's limited in what else he can give you though. He does okay with steals. He's probably not going to block as many shots nearly as Towns. He's not going to hit any three-pointers. He's not going to be as good of a passer. So he's going to be sort of like in that, like imagine if Zach Randolph shot a little higher percentage. Like that's probably his ceiling, at least in his rookie year. Just as a way of interesting point, his closest player comp is Big Country Bryant Reeves and Elton Brand. So if that kind of puts in your head what he can do, that might be helpful. Moving on.
In Okafor's first year, I mean, so he's going to be Carlos Boozer with a better field goal percentage?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And then a worse free throw percentage.
Yep.
So, and Okafor is in, we don't know, I mean, what he shot like 50% or 55% from the free throw line in college. So Okafor is at risk of being one of those guys in rotisserie leagues that you just do not draft though either. So,
and I wouldn't draft him in a rotisserie league.
My first mock draft this year, Zach hosted it, Zach Ruiz. I took Karl-Anthony Towns in it because of the fact that I think his field goal percentage is going to be good enough to not hinder you too much, and his free throw percentage is going to be good. But I avoided Jaleel Okafor because I don't want that bad free throw percentage in a rotisserie league.
Now let's talk about Russell. He's one I'm really curious about because he's one guy where I feel like the stats and the eye tests are telling me something kind of different. Let me read you his player comps. Number 1, Ray Allen. Number 2, Jay Williams. Number 3, Penny Hardaway. Number 4, James Harden. Number 5, Chauncey Billups. Like, that's a pretty good crew there. But his summer league and preseason doesn't seem to be going quite as well. What's your take on Russell?
I'm not high on him. I'm not drafting him this year. But for me, a lot of this stuff just comes down to the situation. Russell's got Lou Williams coming off the bench behind him. Lou Williams always commands over 20 minutes a game, sometimes much more than 20 minutes a game. You got Jordan Clarkson there who can handle the ball. Kobe's still there. He's going to want the ball. And then I don't even like the other pieces around him really for for pretty much anything. So it's really just hating the situation and not believing that Russell's going to be able to flourish or be what you expect him to be or want him to be until Kobe's gone.
Yeah, I think that's a great take. Can you mind looking at his projection and just seeing, like, is there anything on? So we've got him projected for 11 points, 3.5 rebounds, 4 assists, a 3-pointer, and almost a steal per game. Is there anything that you feel like is way off or way out of his what he could accomplish?
The first thing I look to is the assists, and I say, okay, he should get more assists, but not on that team.
Yeah.
Like, he's just not going to have enough possessions to get enough assists. And even the points, I don't know how many points D'Angelo is going to score, because it's just how many shots is he going to find playing with, three other guys who kind of want the ball in their hands. And then you got Julius Randle sitting there constantly putting the ball on the floor, going to the rack, which he's been doing a pretty good job doing it. But Julius Randle likes to have the ball in his hands too. And he's one of those, sometimes it feels like he's one of those Michael Beasley, just hold on to it for forever and wait until the shot clock drills out.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm very interested probably to see what the 2 point guards do, Moutier and Russell, just to see what kind of players they actually become. I think if you like Russell, there's certainly a case to be made that he could be very good in his rookie season. I mean, you listen to those player comps and you kind of get excited. If that's the case, if you like him, go ahead and draft him and just be glad that everybody is sort of down on him, because that means you can get a better value on him. All right, moving on to our buddy Porzingis, Kyle. He's another, I feel like this is a place where the narrative and the stats don't match up. His stats translated from his Euro League to the NBA are very, very competitive. In fact, if we gave him an equal minutes share, we've only got him projected for 24.5 minutes based on a Phil Jackson comment that I'm not sure I want to believe. But if we gave him an equal share of all the rookies, my guess is he would come out as the top ranked rookie from a statistical standpoint. Even at 24 minutes per game, we've got him for 10 points, 5.5 rebounds, a 3-pointer, over a block, and nearly a steal per game.
Well, and in the triangle offense too, Porzingis is going to get the ball a lot, where he might actually have the opportunity to get more assists than what's there.
I love taking him because you can see his average draft position is 192. We've got him ranked 121. I love taking him at the end of your drafts and just seeing, like, if he pans out, great. Like, he could very well be a starter for you if he gets into the 25 to 30-minute range per night. And if not, then you can just kick him back to the waiver wire and pick somebody else up.
He's got the right attitude, man. You listen to him talk. He was pissed off that he only had 2 rebounds in his first preseason game, and he came out and he told the media, he's like, I got 2 rebounds. I got to do better than that. I got to get more than that. And he went out and grabbed 10 rebounds in the next game. His shot just looks good. 3-point shot. He's going to be a scorer. This is a unique. I'm telling you, this is a unique rookie class. Last year we didn't talk about rookies this exhaustively from the perspective that we legitimately thought they were going to have, several of them were going to have an opportunity to really step up and be key contributors. But
I don't know if that's. I mean, that was the Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker draft class. I think that was a pretty highly doubted class as well.
But I mean, how many of those guys did we really expect to be like legitimate standard league contributers in fantasy?
I think from my perspective, it was a similar amount. I think I wrote an article saying, these are the 2 or 3 guys that you should definitely start. Here are the 3 or 4 that you can put on your bench, and there's not a whole lot else. I'm with you, though. I think, from an NBA standpoint, this draft class hasn't gotten the hype. I would have said this class hasn't gotten the hype that the last year's did, but this one has a chance to be just as good or maybe better.
And I think some of these guys I think we've got several guys who can end up being top 50 fantasy players in a short number of years.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't want to go forever, and I think you and I could talk about rookies forever, Kyle, but let's go with the next 3 guys. One of them I love, one of them you love, and one of them I think we're both pretty high on. So the guy I love is Mario Hezonja. You love Stanley Johnson, and I think we're both pretty high on Miles Turner. You want to start with your boy Stanley Johnson?
He's pretty much already the sixth man for the Pistons. He's gonna get plenty of minutes. He's gonna challenge for the Rookie of the Year. Watching him play, I guess I've said all this before, but he's composed. He hits his shots. He takes it. I think we should have him up to 29 minutes. He's gonna score, honestly, probably 13 to 15 points a game at least. Talking probably closer to 5 rebounds a game, which isn't too far off. 1.5 assists is fine. 1 to 1.3 steals probably. And then we're probably going to get him, 0.3 blocks is fine. He's going to hit a three-pointer a game, though.
So you basically just think we need to bump up his minutes. It seems like we're kind of in the right range, at least what you're thinking. Maybe the scoring's a little lower, but we just need to get him more minutes on here. Okay, I don't think we're as far off as maybe we sound like sometimes. I want to know where you would realistically draft him, knowing that he's going on average like pick 170 in Yahoo drafts. Are you just saying like I just want to throw him on my team, kind of like I'm talking about with Porzingis? Are you like slotting him in as somebody that you definitely want to start?
Porzingis, I'm probably ready to take Porzingis around like in a 10-team league, the 11th round.
Okay.
Stanley Johnson, I would start looking at like the 12th round in a 10-team league, like the round before the last round, just because in the final round everybody's going to start taking flyers, and whereas last week I wouldn't have drafted Stanley Johnson, or I would have taken him with my very last pick. After watching these first, I think there's been 3 preseason games so far, I just have no doubt in my mind that he's just that good. Like when it comes to who's going to get the ball for the Pistons to go score or to facilitate or whatever, it's Reggie Jackson, it's Andre Drummond, and then it's going to be Stanley Johnson. He's going to have the 3rd most possessions when it's all said and done this season.
Yeah. And I guess for me, if I'm going to draft a rookie, it's going to be somebody who we've already talked about. I'm probably not targeting Stanley Johnson. I'm keeping a close eye on him and several of the rookies in this sort of range in our rankings, but I'm expecting to get somebody better than him with my last pick. If I don't, I'm happy to take him kind of my last pick, but he's not somebody that I'm targeting.
Do you happen to know or recall like any guys who you have taken with your last pick or anything like that?
Ooh, I mean,
would you rather take Zach LaVine, obviously, but he's not going to be available now as your last pick?
Yeah, I mean, like Marcus Smart is somebody who I've gotten. Porzingis, to be honest, in the few mock drafts I've done, has been there. I'm happy to take him above. I would probably,
and that's fair. I think I would, given what my team needs are.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem.
Yeah, it's. Do I want
Mino ahead of him? I would take.
I agree. I agree on that one too.
I feel like I've taken Alec Burks at the end of a lot of drafts.
Those are all fair. Like I think those are all fair choices. Those guys' roles seem more concrete, but that's also because there is a little bit of fear about putting too much faith in a rookie who's the only time you're really seeing them is in the preseason. But I'm telling you, if you watch these Pistons games, the way he's composed out there and he fights through stuff, it's hilarious.
I think he's definitely got a bright future. And I even think that you could definitely have him ranked, if you're going to draft 156 players in a 12-team league, I don't have any problem with him being 150 in the 100 in that bucket. But I guess what I'm saying is I usually draft, because I'm using my own rankings and nobody else is, I'm usually drafting players that I have in the 70s, 80s, 90s as my last picks. So I don't usually get down to him. And I don't know that I see him having the upside as like a Porzingis. Honestly, I know that you're going to disagree with this. I would probably take D'Angelo Russell over him.
Oh, I mean, I just wouldn't draft D'Angelo Russell because of where D'Angelo Russell gets drafted.
Right. That's fair. Okay. Do you want to talk about Miles Turner and Hezonja quickly, and then we can wrap it up?
Yeah, Hezonja's the biggest issue there is he going to get minutes this season? Because in his very first preseason game, and this was true of several players on the Magic, there's several players who got benched for not playing defense. So Hazonia only played 10 minutes in his first preseason game. I don't trust on that Magic team that this rookie that's coming in is going to play over Peyton, Oladipo, Tobias Harris, Aaron Gordon, or Evan Fournier. I just don't think that's going to happen. So that's my biggest contention with Hazonia is I don't think he's going to get those 24 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a totally legitimate concern. And I think probably if I had to if I had to take a guess, I would say that's probably the way it plays out is he doesn't get enough minutes. I do think there's a scenario where he gets enough minutes and he just turns out to be so overwhelmingly talented that like by the end of the season, we're asking like, who's the better player on the Magic? Who's the better cornerstone, Oladipo or Hazonia? So I kind of like just taking a flyer on him as maybe my last pick as somebody who could go either way and that will know. One of those things, everybody talks about those lottery tickets. One of the things I like with my lottery tickets is to be able to know quickly so I can move on if I need to. And I feel like with Hazonia, like we'll know pretty quick what's going to happen with him. If Skiles isn't intending to play him, if he's only going to get 15 to 20 minutes a game, you'll know right away. And if he's so overwhelmingly talented that he has to play a lot, we'll know right away. So,
if you're deciding between Stanley Johnson and Hazonia, though, I'm telling you, take Stanley Johnson.
And I probably take Hazonia just as a last pick, as a guess. Just a lottery ticket to hope that he turns out.
Stanley Johnson's going to win the MVP.
I've heard that before. All right, let's talk about Miles Turner, and then we can wrap this up. His stats are really interesting. He projects as good of a block guy as Karl Anthony Towns. He's going to get some rebounds. We know that he can shoot. I think the question there with him is the same thing. Even though Indiana doesn't have like a super talented front court, does he get enough minutes to be fantasy relevant?
I'm afraid that Miles Turner won't get enough minutes early in the season to be fantasy relevant in standard leagues to be worth drafting. But there will be several times throughout this season where he gets thrust into a larger role. The only concern you have is will it stick? Will they just give him a 1 or 2 game trial and then they'll be like, you know what, he's just not ready, blah blah blah. And that's the big concern there is the consistency. I don't know that the minutes are going to consistently be there.
Yeah.
But I love him. He's supposed to have a 3-point shot that he's developing. His outside game just inside of the arc is amazing. In general, he's a great shooter at both the field and from the free throw line. There's a lot to love about Miles Turner. If I'm playing in a dynasty league, I'm trying to get that cat.
Yeah, I think that's a wise move. And I think he's definitely a guy, like you always say, put him on your watch list. Because I do think there will be weeks where he gets hot and you can ride him to winning a few head-to-head weeks, and especially if you need blocks, for example.
He'll have some crazy daily games night too early in the season where he like comes off the bench and in 25 minutes puts up 12 and 15 with 3 3-1ers or something stupid with 18 blocks.
Yep. That would be an impressive. I think that might be a record, but
it's gonna happen.
We could do it. All right, Kyle. Is there anything else you want to discuss here?
No. Jelly.
Is there any other rookie that you would draft, that you would think about drafting beyond the few that we've talked about in a standard league?
No, not right now.
Yeah,
but
I'm keeping an eye on Neto. I'm keeping an eye on Willie Cauley-Stein.
Cauley-Stein's not going to do anything.
There's reports that George Karl said that he may be the starter next to Cousins. So I'm just keeping an eye on it. It's going to be a minutes thing.
All right, I'm going to have to go read into that more, and I'm going to have to watch more of these Kings games. I guess I can watch the CJ McCollum beating up on him from last night. Which, by the way, CJ McCollum, all right.
Yeah, he had a great game in the preseason contest.
Oh my gosh, you're still not on board
with what?
CJ McCollum.
I'm okay with drafting him in the right place. You're talking about an injury-prone player who's only going to contribute in a few categories. I want to be pretty careful. But But look, I like Portland is one of the teams I follow closest. I'm hoping that he works out. I don't know. I think there's so many unknowns. And that game, by the way, Lillard didn't play in that game.
No, I know, but with Lillard out, he went out and dropped 30 points on 8 of 15 shooting.
Yeah, and he's not going to shoot at 8 of 15 every night.
Well, yeah, I know.
I could get on board with him having a few huge games this season. Like if he drops 40 points, that won't really surprise me. But I think there will be other nights. But from a bigger picture, points aren't my concern with him. Like I think he'll be fine there. I think he'll be fine on 3-pointers. I just worry that there won't be a lot else that he could struggle with some injuries. He could struggle percentage-wise getting used to his new role. There's just more risk there than I feel like people are baking into his ranking.
All right, that all sounds totally reasonable.
But for as a Trailblazers supporter, I'm crossing my fingers and hopes that the Blazers can somehow guard pick and rolls with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum on the court. I don't think it'll be pretty though.
No, it's probably not going to be the greatest thing in the world.
Although if they get Ben Simmons out of it, all the better.
I don't think they're going to lose that many games.
No, I don't think so either. But I do think if they were trying to lose games, one of the best strategies they could have is to try to have Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum guard other people's opposing best scorers.
I can't wait for those guys to win a co-defensive player of the year award this year.
Oh my gosh. You could put that as the most unlikely thing that would ever happen. And I'm a total Damian Lillard guy. He's one of the very few guys that I will have to switch the channel to if he's playing. But defense is not his jam.
The guys I am putting on my watch list for this season, I mean, pretty much all of those guys at the bottom. Nemanja Bjelica, Frank Kaminsky, Justice Winslow, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. He will not score any points ever, but he could put up some other weird, good defensive stats and stuff. Raul Neto, you got to be keeping an eye on him because he might become the starter to begin the season. And then Willie Cauley-Stein, sure, keep an eye on him. We'll see, man. It's JaVale McGee 2.0, baby. Playing for George Karl again. Oh, sorry I came into camp, out of shape. What, dude? Your rookie camp? Sorry I came in out of shape? Come on, man. Come on. I don't know, man. I'll have to watch more game tape to see just how gangster Willie Cauley-Stein is, but I haven't been buying the hype on him at all.
And I'm not sure that he plays starters minutes, which won't even necessarily happen if he's a starter, that he's a fantasy guy to have anyway. So I'm definitely not high on him. Just a guy to keep an eye on. If he does, minutes, like we always say, minutes are important. If he has a chance to get minutes, we want to be aware of him. All right, I think that's it for us. Should we wrap up, Kyle?
Yeah, thanks. You can find me on Twitter at RotoKyleNBA. I'm Kyle McEwen. Our theme music today is Promise Ring, Happiness is All the Rage from Jade Tree Records. You can buy stuff there at jadetree.com, yo.
And I'm Mark Roberts. You can find me on Twitter at Mark F. Roberts. Mark is spelled with a C. And once again, if you have anything that you would like to contribute on the website, or if you just feel like you have a cool fantasy idea, you want to use our website as a avenue to let other people see it, let us know. We're definitely interested in that kind of stuff. And we've had a few things come our way like that we want to try to share with people. We hope we'll get up soon. So keep having fun with our site. We hope that you like it. We hope that it's something that you can rate and review on the iTunes if you want to. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.